welcome back, and Merry Christmas, everybody. This is Anne, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and disembodied hands, Quindies, Justin, and John. How are you all today? Heading into the holiday weekend, the holiday here in the USA. Probably the holiday for a lot of other people. Hello, Carrie Michael, thank you for the resub, 18 months, and Quindy, remembering the Prime sub. I feel it. Hello, Lonely Yeti. Merry Christmas. Yes, peace and love. And Bean Mitch with the 19 months. Is it Merry Christmas Sub Day? It must be Merry Christmas Sub Day. Thank you all. Thank you. Christmas subs. Good morning. Accentes for 2 months. Yay. Good morning. Yay, it's good. It's a good day. I slept a little better last night, so yay. Now we has Darius. I'm probably going to do his eyes, and I think I want to set up some gold. It's at the point where I need color accents, and I was actually thinking about this, but I need some gold up here on his hat. So I think that instead of that dark brim, I think I am going to actually go gold with it. I might even do some fancy little gold like stars on his hat. Who knows? Oh, Hype Train. M. Fontana with the 27 months. Excellent. It is Christmas sub day. Yeah, you guys. Awesome. Super. We love it. We absolutely love it. Alrighty. Yay. I am hoping to spend the day to get my my Painting Big website updated with some new photos of minis. Stuff from the stream, stuff in general. Yeah, hey team. Exactly. It's team day. We'll probably be a little smaller today unless there's a bunch of people out there like on the interwebs looking for painting elucidation, in which case they should stick with this channel. So let's do some gold. Let's do some eyeballs. I'll mix up my gold colors, but then we'll do eyeballs. That way it gives people time to trickle in before we do eyeballs, because, we always have eyeballs questions. But yeah. So we decided to cook Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve, actually. Normally my family does the opposite, but I thought it would be nicer to have a nice dinner the night before Christmas. And I'll still make something on Christmas Day, but I'll make something different. We're doing Thanksgiving for Christmas. What are you guys making for Christmas? So we're not doing a turkey though. We're doing a chicken because I love roasted chicken. But otherwise, we're doing a redo of our Thanksgiving, which will be nice because more people will help us eat it. Hello, everybody. Yes, Merry Christmas Eve. Yeah, we don't have our family David's family is already here, and my family won't be here. So you're doing ham? Turkey, ham, and lamb. Wow, a whole bunch. You must have a big family, Stephens. And converted from a Prime Gaming sub to a Tier 1. We've been upgraded. Woo, thank you. Thank you for the upgrade. Sweet-ish meatballs. That's funny. And corn casserole, that sounds tasty. I'm going to do green bean casserole, and I do it with homemade cream of mushroom soup. I love making my cream of mushroom soup. It's so good. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, pick a yellow. What's our yellow for our NMM today? Pick a yellow, any yellow. Any yellow that I have in my tray. Smoking ribs and butt. See, what I would have seriously considered doing a prime rib, but David's mom really likes roasted poultry. She likes to do Thanksgiving for Christmas, so. Lantern yellow? Okay, well, we could actually just go straight up lantern and just go with it and see what we can do with it. I actually haven't done that ever. So let's do it, Korniko. Let's just use it, because usually I use lantern as an additive. This is going to give our yellow quite a punch, so I will be using some rich leather to cut it down. So she can slaughter them. Wow. She's hardcore, Stefan's World. Like, I had a friend who slaughtered her own Thanksgiving turkey, and that was pretty hardcore for America. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, we'll use lantern. Everything is live here. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we don't have the room for livestock here. My parents, or my grandparents on my mother's side, had a beef cattle farm, and my mom grew up, you know, they had chickens, they had everything. They would slaughter their own animals. So my mom knows how to slaughter a chicken and pluck it. Although she always left the slaughtering to her brothers because thank God they were into it and she wasn't. And she's like, if I never have to pluck a chicken again, it'll be too soon. So it's funny. Alrighty, so we're going to start with a puddle, just like I do normally. A puddle of lemon yellow. We're going to put 1 drop of rich leather into it. We're going to mix it up. And see where we are. And then we're going to build a lighter. We're going to probably take a big fat brush full of that and move it over like I usually do. But then we're probably going to have to add at least 2 drops of white. We're seeing this is going to be pretty intense gold, actually, if we do this. Greeks are all about fresh. Wait, when you can do it, man. When you can do it and you have the know-how, why not? I'm sure that there are farmers here in America who are, you know, doing their own slaughtering as well. So that's pretty cool. Hey, Sig Wolf, how's it going? Yeah, I need to go get a chicken at the grocery store today, and I need to pick up a steak for 2 steaks for tonight because we're gonna do steak. Because steak is easy. I like easy. If I have to like cook like elaborate stuff for 2 days in a row, then I'm totally going to go easy tonight and go with the steak. Alrighty, let's get some water in these suckers. Rich leather's going to be 1. We have 2 drops in there. Hello, Pendrake. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. All that jazz. So, yeah, so that's going to darken down the lantern yellow. You see how it made it deeper to add that rich leather to it. We're still nice and yellow, though. We're not going greenish or anything. And then we're going to take the brush and mix up this puddle. I think I'm going to add another drop. Well, maybe not. I need to use this as a base coat first, so maybe I won't add another drop. I'll add another drop after I've got my base down, because then I want it a little thinner in case I need to do touch-ups. Painting palette. Oh, I clean it. Yeah, the great thing about the porcelain, Stefan's World, is that you can just put it in the sink with a little hot water and just scrub it, and I use a green scrubby pad. And it'll come right up. Like, especially when I go and I clean it right after the stream. So there's only a little bit of dried paint around the edges and it's pretty pliable still. It hasn't like really solidified. It hasn't really cured on. So I can just clean it with a bit of water and a green scrub pad and it comes right up. And it doesn't, the nice thing about the porcelain is that because of this glassy finish, it doesn't scratch it if you use a pad that's not really, really abrasive. And because it doesn't scratch the surface, it means the paint doesn't have anything to stick to. Whereas when you do this with a plastic palette, every time you clean it with a scrub pad, it's going to leave little tiny scratches in the surface. And that allows the paint to stick better. So that's why plastic palettes are just impossible to clean after a little while. Like they start out being okay, but they quickly just go south. And then you have to toss out your palette and buy a new one if you hate dried paint on your palette, which I do. But the porcelain is wonderful. Even if I had paint that I left to dry in here for days, if I put it in the sink and run hot water into it and then just squeeze like a little bit of cleaner, like all-purpose kitchen cleaner into it, just spritz it in there and let it sit for 5 minutes, the paint will come right out with a minimum of effort. So, hey, Roger, thank you for this. The month tier 1 sub for 16 months. Excellent. Yeah, I feel like I might need some of that later today, Crowley. It's a rainy day here. It's quite dreary, so I may give in to the cold coffee this afternoon. Yeah, simple green or like I 409, any even method simple, method cleaner. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, usually we have a bathroom sink we have a bathroom right off our hobby room, Stefan's World. So that bathroom is kind of the palette cleaning sink. I don't use the kitchen sink. Although it depends on what you have for sinks too. Ceramic is pretty easy to, like porcelain, like ceramic sinks are pretty easy to clean up just like this palette. So you can use some cleanser and if you get any little paint specks, you can clean them up. I do recommend like putting a trap in the sink, like something fine and wire so that big flakes of paint don't go down the sink. But yeah, otherwise, if you have a stainless steel sink, that's another one that's easy to clean up. Oh, noes! Yikes. Yeah, supply chains. Oh, yes. Metallic paint is very hard to take off and you need to use cleanser and you need to scrub it. Like probably a heavier duty cleanser because Crowley, the metallic paint base is the most high adhesion base. It's very high acrylic and that means that it dries very hard. And so to get that up, you'll need to soak it, make sure you get really hot water and use a serious cleanser like 409 or I don't know what part of the world you're in, but I used to use more of a heavy duty cleanser to get that off. And you'll have to scrub a little bit more. So that's why I do that trick. Remember where if I have metallic on my palette, I actually fill my brush with water and run it all around the outside, leaving the metallic paint in kind of a puddle in the middle. And so if you do that, you're creating a barrier where it won't dry up on the palette. And then you've still got pretty thick paint in the middle to deal with. So it's kind of a trick, and it makes it much easier to clean up. Don't let it dry in the palette. Don't ever let metallic paint dry in your palette. It will take forever. If you do have a cake of it in the bottom, the best thing I can say is it's fully cured. So just mix a new puddle of paint over the top of it with any color. And as the water in that paint sit on it, it'll slowly loosen up that pad of metallic paint. And you'll be able to peel it up or scrape it up. It's the benefit, but it's still not for me. David actually doesn't even clean out. Most of my friends don't even switch out their paper in Aura. They're like, yeah, I'll clean it when I don't have any room left. Yeah, no reaperlive. Yep. But Crafty Creative's still on? Okay, cool. Yeah, and I am not on Aura. I am off all next week, so there'll be no Anne unless Justin decides to do an Anne marathon. Like a la Bob Ross and all the other great marathons that happen over the holidays because people don't want to work. All right, so let's see how this translates when we pull it over, how bright it's going to be. We got to make sure we don't overwhelm the blues that we're using because we are using some more muted blues. So let's get a big fat brushful, 2 big fat brushfuls. One big fat brushful is roughly equivalent to a drop. I don't overthink it. Most of the time I'm looking for a specific paint consistency. Oh, and I may as well make my pure white. So if you're looking for a pentad, a 4-color set for NMM, then I would put blackened brown, russet brown, or brown liner, or a mix of brown liner and russet brown over here, depending on how warm you want your shadows to be. That's a pretty good color. I'm going to thin it down a lot because I dropped pure white into it. And then I'll thin down my white. I'm going to do 4 to 3. Well, I am going to be out of the state with my family traveling for the holidays, so I will not be available at all. Anns deserve a day off, too. In this case, it's a week off. We are going somewhere very warm, so I'm looking forward to beach and hot weather, because it's been pretty lousy here. We've had a lot of... Actually, if it got even a little colder at night, we'd actually have snow here, which never happens. But it's been like... Overnight, it's gotten down into the low 30s here, which is very cold for this this part of the state. Alrighty, I'm gonna block in and see how this see how my color composition looks real quick. So I decided to make the brim of his hat gold, and that means I'm probably gonna have to put some gold up onto the hat to carry it. Well, there's plenty of snow in California. Like, you know, David just goes down to Lake Tahoe to ski. And there's snow in Yosemite for sure. Yeah, we have plenty of mountains. The areas around us, relatively close to us, get snow. But not us. Good, Agent Marvel. That's great. Yeah, it's nice when your tiny human, miniature human gets into a routine and is no longer so disruptive. So yeah, we'll probably do some freehand on the hat just for fun. I don't know. Was planning to do some freehand on the back of the cape. Just a little bit, something simple. But I haven't quite formulated a plan for it all. Just kind of going with the flow. Figured since freehand really affects the composition of the piece, both because you're adding color and because you're adding detail that's going to draw the eye, I kind of like to get a lot of the rest of the figure done and then kind of figure out what I need. So we'll definitely go gold there. Nope. Didn't at all, Pendrake. We get a lot of it, like tiny micro earthquakes all the time. And unless it's a big one, we generally don't notice it. We just notice our paintings are crooked. Cherry yogurt, yum. I like cherry. Yeah, you got snow and Greece and that isn't normal, huh? Weird weather. So I realized the problem with making this guy spelling the Christmas cat, and that is that he is not at all in Christmas colors. Which makes me want to paint his hat like wrapping paper. I think that would be kind of funny. But totally he would have to be in a diorama at that point. But yeah, when I looked at him next to the Christmas cat, I realized that was the problem, is that the colors just don't go together. Maybe I could manage to make them if I made everything green, gold, and silver, and I stayed away from red. Or I could go red, yellow, blue, but then I'd have to put some red on him somewhere. So I'm still thinking about that. But the cat otherwise works. Like I got it in my Reaper order. Yeah, we could go that way. We could go with snowflakes, Pendrake. That's a good idea. I could go that way. Or we could go stars and snowflakes. I mean, they're both thematic, right? Gold stars are still thematic for Christmas. So that's a really good idea. Nope, wet splat. I'm on today. I decided, especially because I missed a day earlier this week because I got my COVID booster. So I wanted to make sure that I was on a bit, especially because I'm going to be gone all next week. So off with my family. We're with David's family right now. They drove down from Seattle area, and I missed these mold lines or these little artifacts. Irregularities. Need to take those off with the knife. But yeah, since I was going to be gone, I wanted to do all the days I could. So tomorrow it's off. Tomorrow I'm off because All Reaper's not streaming. And I need to cook. And I need to finish up Patreon stuff before I go on vacation with my fam. So everybody gets their stuff and I can relax when I'm on vacation and not worry about having to rush home and get something up the day I get back. There's just a little divot there that's driving me nuts there. Oh no, the booster, actually did make me, the big thing was just that my arm really hurt that night, Pendrake, so I didn't sleep well, and that on top of feeling, feeling mildly like I was going to have a cold, and you get kind of tired. That's always used to be my cue that a cold was coming on, is I would get really tired for no reason, and all of my joints were aching, so pretty much I was exhausted that morning, and I was all achy, so I decided to call it off, because I would have been very low energy. And that's never good for a stream. You always want to have good energy when you're going to be streaming. So, yeah, I called it off for that. But then, the day after, boing, it's just... I always was very fast to get over colds, even when I got them. And lately, my immune system has been totally kicking butt, and I haven't been sick at all. So, I didn't actually get any symptoms other than feeling achy and tired. And my arm pain, like, went away by the next day. Like, there's almost nothing left. Like, if I press on it, I can feel it. But, like, otherwise, I don't even notice it in the course of the day. But then I also got my booster shot was the same vaccine that I got for my regular shot. I didn't switch it up. Sagebrush, you're funny. But yeah, it hit David a lot harder, but he also gets sick more readily than I do. I may have a crappy back, but my immune system is like kick butt. There we go. So we're mapping in our gold so we can see where it is. And this is a pretty good composition because we've got 3 points. 3 points of gold. And they move nicely around the figure. They're kind of at a diagonal. You know, they kind of lead your eye. So that's actually a good composition. We've also got a little bit of gold down here at the foot of his robe. Yeah, David got Moderna and it hit him like a truck, Pendrake. But he got Pfizer the first time. So he thought maybe it was the disparity. But yeah, it just, whenever you figure out, once you start having, like, once you've had medical issues, you realize very quickly that every person is different and every medication reacts differently with different people. And your experience may not be the same as anybody else's. When it comes to medical stuff, everybody really is a unique snowflake. I mean, it's probably, there have been people saying all along that it's going to turn into just a flu, essentially. You know, you get a booster for it like you get your flu shot every year. I could see that. If it means we can all go back to normal life and having fun together again and not having to worry, then I'm up for it. There we go. So we've got our gold kind of mapped in. We got a little bit of it down here. Things get kind of indistinct down here. It's hard to see the details. So everything kind of runs together. I'll probably take my liner and do a dark shadow at this point. Yeah, exactly. Your reaction is dependent on your own immune system. Yeah. I didn't know if it was which way it was going to go, because sometimes if your immune system has a really aggressive reaction, then you feel a lot worse, but maybe you bounce back a little faster. But mine just shrugged it off. It was just like, oh, all right, whatever. We've seen this before. As long as it works, that's all that matters. I want all of you to be happy, healthy, and safe. That is my wish for all of you this holiday season and beyond. Because I love my viewers. So I just grab some brown liner and put that down. As much as a layer of paint or shadow, but it depends also on whether you thin it, and you should always thin it just a little bit, by the way. I usually do a 5:1. And then apply a nice thin coat. You can always do a second coat if you really want to, but I usually don't find that it's necessary. Master Series paint has a lot of good adhesion on its own, so the sealer is usually something I use if I'm going to ship a model. Specifically, and usually I don't seal for my own purposes unless it's a gaming model. If I know it's going to be a gaming model and get handled, then yeah, sure. But I'll just do a slightly thinned coat. If you use it full strength and you put it on thick, it may take a while to dry, just like a thick coat of paint will. Depends also on your climate and how cold or warm it is in your house and how much humidity you've got. Yeah, not very long. A few minutes. As much as paint. When it goes, if you put a little bit of water into it, then it should dry to kind of the same sheen as the miniature. But I mean, if you must just wait a few minutes, I just let it sit for 5 minutes, come back, kind of look at it. Should be able to tell if it's wet or dry. Always check in the like crevices though. Like it, just like a wash, it will tend to pool. Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yesterday to today. I mean, it's just like paint. It's just like a brush on like lacquer kind of thing where but it cures as fast as in Master Series paint does. So there we go. So I've got a shadow on here. I may as well just kind of, I don't want to paint the whole base yet. Alrighty, so got shadow, got things, got gold mocked in. Did not miss any places gold should be. But my blue tack definitely wants to come up. There we are. All right, so let's do eyeballs now that we've had some time and we've already got his eyeballs kind of mapped in. There. Oh, you varnished 10 minutes ago? Yeah, check it, but leave it maybe for another 5. I mean, 10 minutes should be enough unless it's humid where you are or unless it's cold in the room. If it's cold in the room, it may take a little longer. All right, so we already, you can see what we did with his eyes. I painted them in dark like I always do. And then I put a layer of an off-white or a pale gray down, leaving the dark in the rims and the cracks around the eyes. That's why we've got outlined eyes. And you don't want big cracks, big lines, because it's just going to look like mascara. But slight lines just help to make your eyes stand out a little better at 28 millimeter. That's a bummer, Pendrake. Hello, Trollhole. How's it going? We're working on our wizard. I was just blocking in the gold to make sure I had a nice kind of composition going on. People are suggesting we make him a winter mage because we were going to pair him up with a Christmas model. But we were not quite there yet. I've got a lot of cloth to do before I think about freehand, and we were just about to do eyeballs. So for eyeballs, I always choose something like walnut brown. Because this is such a high coverage paint, I can thin it down to the point where I can get a tiny eyeball in there, but it'll still cover because walnut has excellent coverage. I prefer walnut to black. I don't like using pure black on models. I think it's a little bit of a dead color. So I tend to go with walnut. Colored irises on 28 millimeter models are very difficult unless you artificially enlarge the eye. Otherwise, it's just so small, it's generally the color isn't going to carry. So it can be done, but the painters I know, like Marika and Derek, who have done it, and I've done it like once or twice, they artificially enlarge the eye with paint so that they have more room to work. You can do that if you want to. I think we did eye plastic surgery on one of our models. I don't remember which one. Long time ago. The light blue is just kind of there right now. I mean, these guys have been shaded and highlighted, but this is just kind of there. But the color composition's working. So yeah, I'm glad you like the light blue. So that'll be coming along. That'll be one of the next things we do. I wanted to figure out what freehand pattern, if anything, I was doing so that I could decide whether or not I was doing it on the pale blue. That pale blue is a Pathfinder color, actually. We used... Let me get out my colors so you can see. I think it was Ice Devil. Yeah. I believe it was Ice Devil Blue. It's a beautiful color. It's Pathfinder range, so a lot of people it's kind of off a lot of people's radar, but the Pathfinder range has some beautiful colors in it. So 89524 is the number. You can order them in individual bottles. But we were working with Akata, and we were working with Irison. Our base triad for the regular robes is this, but I wanted to use this color for the brighter aqua because I really love Ice Double Blue. I think it's one of the prettiest blues we make. Irison is also a Pathfinder color. And then Akata is also a Pathfinder color. And then Ashen Blue is normal MSP. So his colors are in that range. There's not a Reaper Live today. It is off. However, Crafty Creative is on for this afternoon, Max Styles. Oh, yeah, the painting of the husky eyes. Yes. Yeah, those worked. Alrighty. I'm going to thin this 4-to-1. 4 paint, 1 water. I am going to use my bottle with a little bit more flow improver in it. I normally don't need to add flow improver because flow improver is already present added to Master Series paint. But that said, when you're doing very small things, sometimes a little additional flow improver is not a bad idea. A little bumped. We're going to do eyeballs. So, eyeballs. I'm using a very a high quality brush with a good point, my Da Vinci Maestro. Number 1. Series 10. Super tip. I could also use a smaller brush if I wanted to. And if you have trouble controlling paint, do switch to a smaller brush. So like when you thin paint, if you find that it runs everywhere, go for your tiny brush. Not a tiny brush. This one's a 3/0. It's a Da Vinci also. Same series as my big guy here. So let's do that actually. Let's use the small brush. And the reason is the paint is just easier to control on a small brush because you don't load it up as much, and so you don't have to worry as much about unloading. It's also faster to unload because it's a smaller brush. So if you have trouble with controlling your paint when you thin it and it tends to go everywhere, then use a small brush for fine details. You're going to have a lot more success with that. Yeah, I had fun with that one. It's fun to paint fur patterns. I really enjoy doing it. That's why I had fun with painting the pattern on the Knoll bust. Because I love trying to do natural animal patterns. Painted her more like a wild dog, but oh, I dropped my water bottle. Alright, so load up your brush. Load it up and then unload it. I dipped it about halfway into the paint. Dabbed it off about 7 or 8 times. Go up from underneath on the eye. Geez, I just want to drop that water bottle every time. And now I need to reload. So when you're the downside of using a very small brush is if you get interrupted and you pause, your brush is going to dry out a lot faster than a big brush will. So this is the downside, is that you have to reload. So do it right when you're about to actually execute. If you get interrupted, I suggest rinsing and reloading just to make sure your brush is as moist as possible when you go to apply it. Go up from underneath because you're using this eyelid to catch the brush. To put down an initial dot. And then I usually go in and I widen the dot a little bit, or I fix it, although that's actually that's a really good eye off the bat actually. It's not too narrow. Pushing it up against the eyelid tends to eliminate that cobra eye thing where you get just a slit of pupil, and it tends to give you a more round dot. Gonna reload. Again, come up from underneath. Oh, get on camera, Anne. That one's a little too far over, so. That's better. I still need to go, it needs to go down just a little bit. So I try to nail it first time if I can, obviously, and if not, then I have room to just gently go in and try to adjust. And sometimes it's not you, it's actually the way the eye is molded. Like you could have kind of an irregular orbit there, or an eye that's a little sunken. This one seems to have a little bit of a paint flaw, of a sculpting flaw, or casting flaw. So I'm going to come in from the side I wouldn't recommend this unless you have very good brush control. There. But it was resisting me pulling it down in the eye, and so I had to go back in and get it to do that. There. That's pretty good. He looks pretty irate. Pretty angry. Yeah, if you're looking for good dogs, yeah, obviously Dungeons and Doggies is great. It's the one I used for my husky painting video on the Patreon, as he's talking about. My Patreon is paintingbig.com. We do a lot of fun stuff like that. A lot of really cool material actually up there recently. I just did a corrosion PDF for the $10 tier, and I've been doing 28mm textures series for the $2 tier. And then we've been talking about making pen tads of colors for highlighting and shading for the $5 tier. So we've been doing an awful lot, and we're about to finish our second paint-along model. We just got, I have to do the base. The base is all that's left on our paint-along models. This is the paint-along for my Patreon, guys, just real quick. We were working on the Bombshell Miniatures Tara. So that is what we did for our paint-along, and we only have basing left. So she's now going to be done, and then we can move on. We're going to do two models, a bust and a 28mm for the next paint-along. And I have to, once I get back from this vacation, I will have more time to set that up. Just have been so busy toward the end of this month. But we still have one more month of base work on her, so probably do something pretty simple, but just because I want it done with. She's taken a long time. Doing these big models really takes a long time. I'd forgotten. All right, so we have eyeballs. We have eyeballs. But maybe you can see how hard it would be to do colored irises, especially on this model. He's got so little room for those eyes in between the bushy eyebrows and the cheekbones. There are a lot of models in 28 that you could probably artificially enlarge the eye a little easier, but this is not one of them. It just makes it very difficult. Alrighty. Oh, well, let's work on the gold. Also, I need a shadow back there. I need to grab my brown liner, and now I can add a little bit of extra water to these colors because I've got my base coats down, so I don't mind if they get a little thinner. But yeah. Patreon is hopping lately. I've gotten a lot of new patrons this month. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Quindy, for the Patreon link. And just so, of course, you all probably know this, but my personal stream on my channel is canceled on Christmas Day. I also won't, I don't think I'm going to be back in time to do it on New Year's Day. So we may have to skip 2 weeks and go back at it. Because holidays and travel. So I suspect that will be the case. But then we will resume after the new year. Thank you for the shout outs, Quindy. Yes, you should go give me a follow, absolutely, because I do cool big stuff on that stream. Because we do so much little stuff here. So on the Painting Big stream, we actually paint big. Most of the time. I've done some other stuff, like the Targaryen models for Jim on the stream. All right, going back to my slightly bigger brush for this. Grab some of my brown liner to darken this area back here in. I just want a shadow back there so I don't have to worry about it. So I'm just going to block that in. And then we will work on our gold. I have to line in there too. I haven't done a line between the gold and the blue. And you can see it. You can see the lack of it, rather. Rhonda just did a great post on her blog, birdwithabrush.com, talking about how our brains sabotage us when we're trying to become better painters. And a resistance to using lining is one of the things that she talks about. But she talks about a lot of interesting stuff that your right brain and left brain pull on each other. And she does talk about like lining Like, lining is the one thing you can do as a beginning painter to make your stuff instantly look better, and yet a lot of people are resistant to it because they feel like it's not natural. But Rhonda demonstrates in some photos that actually it is natural to see a thin demarcation line of shadow between various surfaces when they meet each other. And maybe it's not quite as thick as we portray it at 28 millimeter, but the effect is what our eye is actually looking for, which is why lining, if it's done well, is not does not look unnatural on a tiny model. And I like to just say lining is very minimalistic shading. So if you are not confident with your shading, if you at least line, you will be ahead of the game. Yeah, Rhonda's great. I'm a subscriber, so I get the PDF sent to my inbox. On her Patreon. You can Patreon Rhonda, patreon.com/birdwithabrush, and then you get PDF versions with better photos. And you also support what Rhonda's doing, which is excellent. Always support the artists. If you like their material, you should support them. These days with Patreon, it's just a few bucks. So I value Rhonda at least as much as I value my coffee every week. So, seems like a no-brainer. My coffee is definitely more expensive. So I'm just doing a little line here. I'm not going to worry too much because we have only base coated these areas, so you don't have to this is a good opportunity to just practice lining because we haven't finished out either of these areas. So if I go a little bit off and go into one or the other, it's not really a big deal. I can just rebase coat. You roast coffee? That's funny. Kim Rhonda is the cat's second favorite painter. That's funny. We must have similar brush movements. Our painting style is somewhat similar. Although I think I've gone more realistic lately, but Rhonda's definitely upping her game in the traditional painting world, and so I'd really like to see Rhonda do a really realistic bust, I think. If I had to choose something I would like to see Rhonda try to paint. I think I would love her to apply some of her 2D art knowledge to doing a really realistic bust. I think she would knock that out of the park. And I lost a little bit of my lining around the hands, so I'm going to restore that. And I never had a little bit of lining up here where I needed it, so I'm going to put that in. So when you've got your liner paint out, it's just a good time to kind of touch things up. If you may have buried some lines behind base coating, or you may have lost some to highlights, or you may discover spots that you needed to line and you never did. So it's just nice to kind of look over the whole thing and kind of crisp stuff up if you have lost it. There should be a coffee command. If we could all just type !coffee and have our significant other or the invisible spirits in our home deliver a latte to us, that'd be nice. It would be an improvement on reality. Speaking of reality, augmented reality is rushing at us. Inevitably now, they say that Apple's VR augmented reality glasses might be out next year instead of the year after. That'll be interesting. I'm kind of happy that I'm alive to witness all these crazy tech advances. We'll be living in the cyberpunk universe in no time. I don't know about flying cars, but kind of think that flying cars would be a bad idea unless it was autopilot flying cars, because I don't think I trust humans to pilot flying cars. So !coffee summons Crowley Hamster. That works. There we go. Just want to block in some stuff here. So yeah, just doing little touch-ups, little tune-ups. The top of the hat here needs a little working, and see how uneven that line is. Hello, Daffodweir. We're just doing some quick lining. We did eyeballs, and then I'm going to do some gold here. But I want to even up my lining where I can see that it's sloppy up here. Bit of my base coat. Decided to go rogue there. And there's a little bit of a wobble there where the lining got onto the blue. But since I haven't done any more than base coat the hat, that's not a deal breaker at all. We have plenty of time to even up the blue up there. I just want to make sure that I've got my dark pretty even. Yeah, it's pretty good. We'll do it. We'll go with that. Far-flung future of 2015. I know, right? Where are our hover skateboards? I think they'll come around. I think the Apple ones look very interesting, so we'll see how they actually, like, it's all speculation right now as to what they'll do. But they are, I mean, the price point people saw was actually a very affordable price point for the Apple stuff. So we'll see. That would be a different tack for Apple to take. Would be to make their AR VR glasses more affordable than the competition. That would be like a total reversal. I was reading an article about conjecture about them the other day. Oh noes. Well, if you lose me, have a Merry Christmas, Stefan's World. It sounds like I love lamb, so I'm super jealous that you get lamb. I'm going to make lamb for Christmas Day, though, so I have a lamb leg in my refrigerator right now. I'm going to chop up and do lamb stew. Hey, Ultra Squid. Yeah, right. I don't trust people on a paved road either. Much less in the sky. The freaking sky. Oh, dear. It's just a recipe for disaster waiting to happen. Like, we need to get the auto-driving cars before we can get the air cars, in my opinion. I mean, just look at all the crazy checklists and stuff they need to fly airliners. I mean, you know people are never going to do that when they've got a flying car. So you've got to make the flying car, like, human immune. Cool, Boar Shadow. Having soup for Christmas? I'm doing lamb stew for Christmas Day. And then we'll roast a bird on Christmas Eve, I think. It's just... should work just fine. And after that, I'm going to get lazy. Like, maybe I'll ask that we do takeout again, or maybe we'll just do like something simple like fish for the day after. And then David and I are running away to hang out in a warm climate with my family. So there's a little bit of a line here. This the trim is generally divided, and it has a double line. So you can do that one of two ways. You can either hit that line just with your highlights and have your darkest part be the rich leather base coat. So like you could do 1 line and 2 line and just have it be more subtle, the line between the two. And as you put on highlights, that line will come out a little bit more. So like you start out there, but then as you bring up your highlights in some areas, it will be more evident that it's a double line. See? So you can just do that, or you could actually line it and make it dark. And that is up to you. Right, exactly, Pendrake. That's why I think they were all like self-driving space bubble ship base ships for the Jetsons. Soup for 4 days, now it's a tradition. That's pretty awesome. I think I'm going to try to line this and see if I like it. If I don't, I'm just going to paint it over with the leather. But I feel like in the shadow areas, I'm still going to want that line, so... And again, you don't have to be perfect. You can always touch it up. Get it more or less even, you're going to be highlighting around it anyway, so you can always even it up when you highlight it, so you don't even need to worry so much. And a whole pig. Oh, no lamb leg, you get the whole lamb and the whole pig. Yeah. Yeah, I cannot get whole lamb around here. I would have to go to an outlying farm and try to buy a whole lamb. And even if I had one, I wouldn't have room in the refrigerator. We need to get a second. We want to get a big freezer for meat. Then I can start scouting out, picking up like a quarter of a cow or something. But we have very little storage space, cold storage space here so far. We have room in the garage for a new freezer or a secondary fridge freezer. All right, so I'm going to start with this yellow that we've got that's so bright because we used lantern yellow this time. Lantern yellow probably works on this model, and the reason it probably works is that these gold areas are so thin. If we were working with very much larger gold areas, I don't think that lantern would be the best choice because we have such a muted blue, right? We don't have a very bright blue, and we've got a very bright yellow gold as it stands. But the fact that this is a small area, a narrow area, means that it's not going to clash nearly as much, especially starting from the dark and working it up. It's going to actually work okay, I think, because it's thin. Ever since I listened to the audiobook version of the Checklist Manifesto, which is a scary book, by the way. If you have like big medical fears, don't listen to that book. There's some scary surgery stories in that book. But when they talk about the airline industry and how checklists essentially enabled people to fly planes in the first place, and how the pilots now depend completely on checklists for everything. Like if they have an emergency in the middle of the air, the first thing they do is reach for their checklist book, find the appropriate section, and begin executing. And that saves lives. It's kind of nuts. But yeah, since I listened to that book, I feel better about flying on planes. I know the checklists are there, and they save people. So you don't have to just worry about the pilot and whether your pilot is good. You know that they've got this book that's been made over decades and updated to help them troubleshoot should something go wrong. We all hope that nothing goes wrong when you're up at 30,000 feet, but I used to be, there was a point in my life where I was very nervous about flying. But now I'm more nervous about the drivers when we're coming back from San Francisco on Saturday night. Far more nervous about that. They don't have checklists. And they've probably had a few too many gin and tonics. Alrighty, so what we're doing here is kind of an elongated NMM effect. We are, and we're going to move the highlight down a little bit, but because this is curved outward, you have a shadow, and then you've got it coming up to a highlight here on this outer part, and then it'll go down to another shadow, and then it'll have an under reflection where light bounces back up at it. So I'm just doing that. I'm doing a NMM as if this was, any old surface. Since it's kind of cloth of gold, our gold braid probably here on the sleeve, I'm just generalizing. I do need to make it darker under the book though, because the book would be casting a shadow. Yeah, so you know the checklist. So I'm going to darken down this area just under the book. Bring up my light more toward the middle. Nice. Yeah, I never had a fear of flying as a kid, and then I developed one as a young adult that persisted until I learned enough about airplanes and checklists and safeguards to understand that airplanes are actually safer than cars. Although I still get that kind of irrational bit of it. Just because, like, if something goes wrong on the freeway, I might have a chance to dodge it, but if something goes wrong at 30,000 feet, I have no chance to influence the outcome whatsoever. So I think it's just my inner control freak freaking out a little bit at that point. And she needs to shut up anyway. I'm going to focus my highlight here. And since it's not a sharp highlight, not super shiny, it's not like they've got, you know, gold shining, really, really shined up gold on their sleeves. There'll be a bit of a transition. It won't be a hard edge. It'll be blended into the shadow. Very cool. Yeah, my brother's into planes. He wanted to go into the Air Force. And I don't remember if his eyes weren't good enough or if it was something else. He looked into it, found out he didn't qualify, and ended up not going into the armed forces. Went to college instead. There we go. So bring up our highlight. Then we'll bring up a little bit of a highlight down here. There we go, just a little bit. Helps to sell that illusion. I'm going to bring this highlight down just a bit. Not with white, but with our pale yellow. And then I'm going to paint over that with our medium yellow, actually, because the pale yellow covers better. So we've got our highlights, and we've got our thing, and we can still see that that's going on. So yeah, there we are. So it looks shiny and pretty. So now we'll tackle the inside, and we've already got kind of a guide as to how our highlights and shadows should go based on what we did on the side. So we're just going to duplicate that. Yeah. Yeah, my dad was armed forces, but he was Navy, but he flew helicopters on a copter carrier. Those things look funky. Like they're so like up out of the water. They look like a cube floating on the water. Yeah, that's cool that you had a good experience. My dad had a good experience too. He graduated, actually went out of pilot, but picked up accounting experience, which he had, I think, started before he went into the armed forces, and so he ended up working for Six Flags, actually, as vice president of accounting. So. But he got to go to Egypt. He has his old like slides from Egypt. That's what got me so into Egypt was dad's slides of Egypt, seeing those when I was a little kid. I still want to make it over to see the pyramids and the Valley of the Kings at some point. Yes, Pendrake, but Pete really wanted to fly. So when he found out he was unlikely to be able to fly, he decided not to go that way. Went to college instead for architecture, and now is a partner in his firm in Chicago. So I think he ended up pretty happy with his choice. And let's face it, like sometimes when you have the dream and then you go and look into the dream and you find out what's really involved and then it's not for you anymore. That's kind of like, it's weird, but as I look more into traditional publishing for my book, and then I look at indie publishing, and self-publishing essentially is what indie publishing is, and the opportunities that are out there right now for indie versus traditional, I'm just like, more and more I'm starting to get disillusioned with my love of wanting, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be published by a big publisher. But the reality is that there are some downsides to it. So I'm still going to try. We'll see. I'm going to put it in the hands of the universe. If the universe doesn't think I should be traditionally published, then it will let me know. And I have an excellent backup plan at this point if I don't. So, happy holidays, Dabber. Gotta run. Yeah, happy holidays, Inara. Thanks for tuning in. So you guys can see, even though this isn't sculpted that way, I'm still sticking to the kind of two edges. So here it is sculpted with a double line. But since I have enough room here, I can use the inner and outer edge to suggest that it's still a double line from this angle. And that'll make it look consistent and also give it a little more visual interest. Yes, there we go. So just a little bit of a stronger shadow here on the inner part as opposed to the outer part. And that's because this is just such close to such a dark area. So I'm using some brown liner to darken up the top there just to carry the idea of that shadow. Make sure that I'm consistent. I'll take a little bit of water and blend that in. And then I can start to bring up just a little bit of highlights down this line. Yeah, our time together is buzzing by. We got 25 minutes. And I have to run to the store and pick up a whole bunch, pick up all the food that I couldn't fit in the fridge earlier that I now have to fit in the fridge because I need it. We have to have a serious Tetris battle in the fridge to reassign places to things so that I can fit all the holiday food in. It's so much more than, having 4 people in the house as opposed to 2 people. It's just like so much more than I'm used to having to fit in the fridge, especially when you're doing big production number dinners. There we are. So again, using the inner and outer edge of the sleeve to just suggest a double line like we have sculpted around the outside. And just makes it a little bit more fancy looking, right? A little bit better than just a flat appearance. So we're just using paint plastic surgery to kind of suggest that. And we'll put a little bit of a shadow in here. just a tiny bit. It's a little bit dark. And I can use my brown liner to suggest more of a line between these surfaces if I want to. If I want to bring it in, I can try to do that. And essentially suggest with paint, plastic surgery, with paint, the stuff that's sculpted on the outside. And there we go. Now we've got a double line, just like that. Well, I have specifically to make my chicken, I have to salt it, I have to brine it before I cook it. So, can't cook everything now, Steven's World. That would be bad, because then we have to find a place for the leftovers. I still would be using up fridge space. We'll be okay. I'll figure it out. I'm good at this. I'm good at Tetris. I'm good at spatial awareness. It's my secondary superpower. After colors. Just making sure I have a nice solid base coat on this. Now this, we've got some bubbles and kind of crazy irregularities, but I'm just going to work with it. Going to use my liner to map in my line. So we'll start up here, and again, we don't care so much if we don't get this perfect because we have just a base coat. So if we mess it up, we just paint over it. Like I got a little bit thick with my line here, but I can fix that. It's not a pain at this point. Technically, I guess outside is refrigerator temperature right now, but maybe not during the day. It gets up into the 50s during the day. Okay, so if we go a little far with our liner and we get a little blurfy, and it's hard to get rich leather to cover over liner convincingly, so we'll put down a light. We're going to use our light yellow and bring this line back in. Because then we can put our rich leather over the top of the lighter color, and it's going to carry it. It's going to cover a lot better over the top of a lighter color. Whenever you have a more transparent color, this is a good solution. Just use a slightly lighter version of that color. You can even like take rich leather and mix white into it and just do that, as long as it covers up the dark blorf, and then you can put your rich leather over it. Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. You don't have to do more. You cook it and it disappears, right? That's a lot of dogs. Yeah, David's parents were asking about our next puppy. Little blorf, not too bad. I can get around that. It's going to be highlight area anyway. Merry Christmas, Val. This is my last stream for like over a week. I'll be back after the new year. Let's do that line on the back. Let's start up top. Now this gets very narrow, and there's not much room, so we might have to compress a little. And sometimes that happens where the sculpt is just the molding has not left you a lot of room, whereas it did on the other sleeve, and so things get very close together. So what I'm going to do is make my dark line a little wider out here into the blue, so that I have more room to artificially show that double line. And I'm going to do Yep. Send your wife a new job? Okay, fingers crossed. Good wishes. Good wishes heading your way with the new year. So I'm going to take my yellow, my paler yellow, and I'm going to kind of extend this. I'm going to paint over the edge because it's very shallow here. So essentially I can artificially widen it by moving my line out and then painting over the edge of this area. I can make it actually look a little wider than it is. Now I'm going to have to go back and forth a little bit, but that buys us a little more space.
Well, it should latch softly enough that it's not going to blow open at this point, but certainly you could still stick a credit card in there very easily. So, I've forgotten in our discussion yesterday.
All right, so we'll just work with that. We'll see if we can get it to work. I may have to alter my, well, I might be able to still do a double over here. Now we're getting tight. We had a lot of room on this sleeve. This is the problem with different shapes and where the sleeves are. Sometimes you like get all clever and go, oh, I can do this pattern over here. And then you get over on the other sleeve and you don't have nearly as much room. Though we can extend our border a little bit down inside the sleeve. We could go and use our pale yellow or our white and just make it a little thicker on the inside. And then I'll give us our double line. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make essentially a double line on the inside. I'm going to start with white. And then I'm going to paint over it with the rich leather. Because I like my double line and I want to keep that pattern on the inside of the sleeve. Because I think it makes it a little more interesting. So we're going to artificially do it. So did anybody paint Christmas minis for their family? Or do something like a nativity scene for decoration? I did not this year, but I did buy a couple of Christmas minis to paint next year for people. Yeah, you're working too hard on your competition figure, D. Clearman. I know what you've been spending time on. There we go. So we see how we're introducing that line. And we're doing it in white, but we'll go over it with the rich leather. Bye! Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Steven's World. I hope you have a fantastic holiday. Enjoy your cooking. Enjoy all that tasty food. And we'll see you again after the new year. Have a great one. Happy holidays to your family, too. Oh, that's cool, War Shadow. Oh, nice. Nice, Trouble. Trying works, Grannico. Trying always counts. Nice, Vithiel. All right, cool. They make good gifts for people who otherwise are hard to buy for. I did one for my brother years ago. But I think I want to do another one because I can do so much better. And I'd like to do one for my nephew before he goes off to college. Because he's a nerd. He's a geek like me. He probably hates that. He's probably like, come on, Auntie Anne. I'm not a geek and a nerd. I'm cool. All right, Graham. If you're watching, you're cool. You're cool with me. Looking forward to seeing my niece and nephew and brother and sister-in-law on this little vacation we're going on. That's cool. Oh, sure, Val. I'm glad it worked for you. Yeah, you've made a lot of progress, Val. You've made a lot of progress on your painting, I think. You should be proud. All right, now I'm going to darken that line between those because I've lost a bit of the line between the white and the thing. Being geeky is cool now, but I don't know how cool it is with high school kids. When I was in high school, being geeky and nerdy was not cool. Even if the Revenge of the Nerds movie did come out during that time frame. We're always hardest on ourselves, Val. Even I am always hardest on myself. So we are the ones who will not see all the progress we've made. This is why we should always keep examples of our earlier work so that you can compare. Because you will always be hard on yourself, and sometimes we need to give ourselves a break and just acknowledge that our hard work has actually paid off and that we do not suck. And maybe we do not only do we not suck, but we're actually pretty cool and good at something. We're getting better. We're improving. It's good to give yourself some cred every once in a while. Besides, seeing that you've done something and being proud of it keeps you excited about the hobby. There we go. Blocked in that in rich leather now over the white line. It works really well. Works great because rich leather is like semi-translucent when I've thinned it down like I have. And so it goes right over that white and looks really, you can see the double line. Yeah, you always notice, oh no, my blue tack is not being very, it's very stuck to the wizard, but it's not very stuck to the base. So I'm just going to kind of knead it and twist it a little bit and smoosh it and squish it back onto this. Squish, 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 squish. The wood block is just a little bit resistant. There we go. Oh, good. I'm glad, Val. I'm glad you like that brush. Yeah, it really lets you do fine work. I should mess around with my my bigger one more often. I just haven't, usually on stream I'm reaching for my old reliable, so I'm not like playing around. But I need to do that. Waka, this is my usual, my old reliable, Da Vinci Maestro. His size is actually 1, and the series number is 10, which is their standard round. It's just got it's a great long tapered brush with a super fine point. And so I find, this brush, not this brush itself, but this brand of brush and this size of brush and series is the brush I've used for over 20 years for competition painting. They've never let me down. So I can do anything with these. And it's the brush I reach for most on the stream. I also have been lately using a lot of the Raphael's, Raphael 8408. Again, it's a size 1. It's a very large brush. But as you can see, it also has a super fine tapered point. This is their pointed round, so it's got a lot of a longer, thinner taper at the end. But I go back and forth between these depending on the project I'm working on. Sometimes I just feel like working with the Raphael, and other times I just fall back to the Da Vinci, because this particular brush is actually at its peak where it's well broken in. It's thinned down just a little bit, but it's still like perfectly pointed, and it's got enough belly to work with. There's a certain point when I have them after I break them in where I just feel like they can do anything. Like, it's a super brush. And the more I use it, the better it gets, until it gets to the point where it thins down so much that it no longer will hold like enough paint, or it doesn't have enough strength. And and enough snap or spring. Spring is like when you use the brush and it springs back. And when it gets really thinned down and loses a lot of hairs, that's when you lose that spring. And that makes the brush less ideal for painting detail. So some places call it spring, others call it snap. Either phrase, it means the same thing, which is how strong your rebound is after you do a brush stroke. Yeah, these are grade 1 Kolinsky sables. Anytime you've got Kolinsky, it's a watercolor brush. Some people use them for oils, but these small sizes are usually not used for oils. Unless you're James Wapple, he might. But Kolinsky sable is the highest grade of red sable. So these brushes are all like hand constructed, and they're constructed to hold just immensely perfect tips and to do it for months and years on end if you take good care of them. I tend to abuse mine slightly, so mine last for, probably a couple of years. If I'm painting a lot, like if I'm painting over 40 hours a week, and doing a lot of work with them, then I can run through one in 6 months. That's the fastest I've ever worn down a Da Vinci Maestro. It was when I was painting for competition, and I was painting constantly. I was doing it full-time job. I was painting, so. But yeah, it's any Kolinsky. That's what they're made for. They're made for fine detail watercolor, like wildlife stuff and things like that. So they are made to hold a very, very fine point because you need that control. Like people who are doing botanical work in watercolor where they're doing leaves and flowers, they need this brush because they're just doing such fine detail. And they need such control to do it. It's like the opposite of like traditional like watercolor style where you're much looser. If you're trying to do botanical or wildlife work in watercolor, you're typically going in a very tight direction, and that's what these brushes excel at. And so that's why they excel at miniature painting, because we're using thinned paint and we're going for hyper control and hyper fine detail. And so that's why these types of brushes work well for mini painting and why miniature painters have totally adopted them and used them. I suspect that sales of these brushes, since mini painting really started taking off as a hobby and since the internet and everybody sharing brush recommendations has been a thing, I suspect that sales of these have gone up significantly because there aren't, that high of a percentage of botanical and wildlife painters out there in watercolor, but there's a crap ton of us mini painters. And we're all saying, hey, buy these Raphaels, buy these Da Vincis, and various other, buy the Winsor Newton Series 7. So I would bet that over the last decade or two, sales of really fine Kolinsky, small size Kolinsky have gone up. Yeah. Yeah, Da Vinci is my favorite brand. Raphael is my second favorite brand. And the Winsor Newton Series 7 is kind of a tertiary one that I'll use every once in a while. I haven't found the Winsor Newton to be quite as reliable as far as quality, but they're still a really good brush. Some people have a lot of success with them, and they hold a very good point. And the great thing is you can get them off of Amazon pretty reliably, or at dickblick.com, which has better pricing. The one that Val Furo was mentioning, the Rubloff Brush, is a Russian Kolinsky. You do have to order them from Russia, but they are also a very high-end brush. Rubloff Waka, and these are also this one is not wet right now, but also forms a very, very needle sharp point. They are very good for extremely fine detail. And if you want to try a Kolinsky and you never have, Reaper does a slightly more affordable Kolinsky line that's still Kolinsky. But they do also, their black-handled Master Series brushes are Kolinsky Sable, and I would highly recommend when they are in stock. It's hard to keep them in stock because they're good, they sell. But you can get the 0/5 or the 0/10. The 0/5 I think is more like a workhorse brush for me. It does a lot. The 10 is a smaller brush, similar to this triple lot. Here's the 1 and here's the triple lot next to it. So the Aught 10 from Reaper, 0/10, is more like this guy. That's as small as I would go with my style. But those brushes from Reaper are a little more affordable than some of the other high-end Kolinsky brands, and they give you they give you a good solid brush to start with to try a higher end brush with. If you're not sure if you will like it and you don't want to spend a lot of money, like if you don't want to spend between, 12 and 20 and you'd rather spend $9.99, you can get a Reaper brush and still give it a try. And then if you find that you really like working with the high quality sable, then you can invest. Like I said, if you take good care of Kolinsky's, they will stay good for years and years. It depends on how much you paint and how much you abuse your brushes. If you paint a lot, you will run through them faster. I would guess that I probably take about 1.5 to 2 years to run through to totally wreck a Da Vinci at this point. But I am also a bad Ann. I don't clean my brushes with brush soap, and I typically don't use conditioner on them either. I just leave them out there to do their thing. So if you are a bad person, a bad brush owner like I am, then please do as I say, not as I do. Please do be better at your brushes. Although as I often say, I qualify that. Like, I'm bad with my brushes, but I also rinse compulsively. So my brushes tend not to get a lot of paint in the ferrule. My problem is more that I just slowly lose hairs over time, and that will, of course, eventually make the brush unusable. It's a really pale color, Warshadow, because we were going for old guy. But his skin tone, this is a problem. Like, his skin actually, that's the colors we used. But because the skin is such a small area, it looks really pale. And this is the problem with using off-white or very pale colors on the skin, is that if you have a tiny area, the colors just won't show up. It'll just look, as you say, off-white, especially on camera. So I'm not happy with that, but I went with it. I'm just going to go with it. Sometimes you just settle with your decision. You just go with it. You can see that the skin is a little darker than the white of the beard if you look closely. I may glaze it just a little bit with the desert sand just to bring it a little bit more into line with it being a skin tone. But I haven't decided on that yet. So we're about to the end of the stream, guys. We're at the end of our Merry Christmas, pre-Christmas stream. And I've set up a lot of my areas to have our double strand. I'm going to use the side of my brush here and just try to make a real narrow strand there to try to come in, because we have so little room here on the side. But if I use the side of my brush, I should be able to bring it in a sharp line. I'm using the pale yellow just to set this up, because that's the only thing that's going to show up, see? So I've got that super fine line. Now I can take my middle yellow, kind of block in this out one. It's going to be kind of a back and forth here, I think. To get the double line, I'm going to have to probably bring in some liner because it has so little room. It's so squished. But at least I can get the start of it. I can do the double line at the top and the double line at the bottom, and then even if it's really squished in here, it should still be conveyed. Yeah, I just started 5 minutes late, Pendrake, so I wanted to go a little past. Yep. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year indeed. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, see, notice how much that does, though. Like, adding the trim, is really kind of making him look more done. A lot of him is done on the front, so. My mic dropped out? Can everybody still hear me or no? Oh, it's on It's a Casualty. Everybody else can still hear me. Thumbs up. Okay, cool. Well then, let us wrap it up. Yeah, I thought it would be weird for it to drop out at the end of a stream. Usually it wants to reset between streams, but thanks for letting us know just in case. Cool. All right, guys. Well, happy Christmas Eve for those who celebrate it. And we will be back after the New Year. Let's say that'll be Christmas Saturday, so it'll be the 3rd. Monday the 3rd. Yes, maybe. Yes, safe, healthy, and full of great foods. Absolutely. And lots of Christmas cookies. Alrighty. Yes, and 2 p.m. Central, you can say happy holidays to Josh as well. Thank you, everybody. And I hope you all have a lovely, lovely time. And I'll see you in a little more than a week. Have a great one.